You should have your textbook out.
Yes, I do.
Yes, you do. Okay, good. All right. Turn this around. All right, I will give it to you guys in a second. Okay. And okay. Last class. We are ready to get going. Okie dokie. All right. When we left off, the man in the yellow suit and the constable, the lazy policeman, is heading out to the Tux to get Winnie, we think. And the man in the yellow suit says he wants to ride ahead. Is the man in the yellow suit really trying to save Winnie, do you think?
No. He's trying to get the woods.
He's trying to get in the woods, okay? So why do you think he wants to run ahead of the constable? Macy, why does he want to move ahead of the constable?
Maybe he doesn't want the constable by the spring water.
Okay, well, they're not heading towards the spring water, they're heading towards the Tux.
Ooh.
Josie, what do you think?
I think that either he will just go up and then turn around and say that she wasn't there, and then go back to the Fosters and say that they didn't find her, or he's going to lead the constable in the wrong direction, and then he'll be lost, and then he'll go back to the Fosters and say that she wasn't there, so that he can take the wood for himself, but doesn't care about Winnie.
No, he definitely doesn't care about Winnie at all. All right, give me 2 seconds.
What if it's so he what if the horse doesn't get tired because it's immortal, so he's going to go ahead so the constable doesn't see that the horse doesn't get tired, or when they get there, maybe the Tux will be like, that's our horse, and he doesn't want them to say that, and then the constable locks him up, takes him back.
Okay. So there's all kinds of possible predictions that we might make. We've got enough background knowledge to know that the man in the yellow suit is probably up to no good. We know the constable doesn't really seem to be the world's best officer. He's definitely, it straight said he was fat and lazy at the very beginning of that chapter. Even his horses seems to be fat and lazy. And he doesn't seem in a hurry to go rescue Winnie either. So he's like, we could have waited till the morning. So what? There's a kidnapped child. Why are you waiting till the morning? Get your booty out there and save her.
I mean, she is with good.
But he doesn't know who has her. He doesn't know that they're actually treating her nicely. Normally, if you just hear kidnapped child, I would think the cops would be like all over that. Like quickly, like speeding a million miles to the location to save a child.
If there's a robber, I bet that cop's gonna be like,
wow, there was a lot of talking all at once all of a sudden. Okay.
if there's a robber, I bet he's gonna be like, let's wait a little while.
Yeah, the police don't, if you know there's a bad guy, you're not just like, I'm gonna finish my lunch, I'll be there later.
That's not my mom.
No. That's not how it works.
To protect and serve.
To protect and serve. There you go. This constable's kind of just interested in eating a donut, maybe. I think. I don't know.
It's like
all right.
It's like the tiger.
You guys are having the talkative problem again.
It's like the
You guys are having the talkative problem again.
It's like the tiger.
Did you raise your hand?
No, we didn't.
You just steadily, like 3 times in a row, I'm like, you're talking too much, and you're like, Jason, stop. I'm ready to read. Okay. Chapter 17. Here we go. For the you leaving?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, take your Chromebook because you can just follow along from home.
Do I need to bring my textbook?
Yes, bring your tuck book and bring your, hang on guys, I gotta get, Kaylin situated, okay? She's going home. You guys worry about yourself. My friends, zip, okay? Kaylin, hang on, let me, I will assign you some stuff on Seesaw, okay? So just check Seesaw and let me write down, I will write down the meeting times for you so you have them real quick.
Oh God. Okay. It's
Hang on, guys. At those times. Okay. These are what times you can log on and do the live meetings. But if you can't be on at that exact time, I'll post the recordings that you can watch back. I forgot to write down the web address. Hang on, guys. I've got someone leaving for the day, so I've got to get her information so she can just log on virtually.
Why are you going home?
My friend's in class. Is it really your business? No.
We're talking about puppies. Me and Riley are. I thought you said pumpkins. I said puppies. She said she's married to a pumpkin and she's gonna have her among the puppies and her child's gonna be a cat.
All right. There's that. And that's the address you're logging to. Okay. All right. Yep. Your tuck book, your Chromebook. And you should use that.
How do you know? Are you glad you
got it?
making sure you
Yes. Yes. Okay. Sorry about that, guys. Okay. My class. Focus. Here we go. Chapter 17. For the second morning in a row, Winnie Foster woke early. Outside, in the ring of trees around the pond, the birds were celebrating, giving the new day a brass band's worth of greeting. Winnie freed herself from the twisted quilt and went to a window. Mist lay on the surface of the water. Hold your breath. And the light was still pale. It looked unreal, and she felt herself unreal, waking where she had with her hair wild and her dress all crumpled. You can move if you want. She rubbed her eyes through the dewy weeds below the window. I didn't mean to spray your face. A toad hopped suddenly into view, and Winnie peered at it eagerly. Another toad. But no, of course it wasn't the same toad. And remembering that other toad, her toad, she thought now almost fondly, it seemed to her that she had been away from home for weeks. Then she heard a step on the loft stairs and thought, Jessie, and at once her cheeks flamed. What does that mean? Her cheeks flamed. They got rosy. What else? Maggie, how's she feeling?
kind of like embarrassed or something like that, or like scared.
Embarrassed but scared, kind of like a anxious, like nervous but excited.
Like first day
I didn't mean to
school.
spray you. I'm sorry.
Cupcake too.
You're definitely clean now. No germs on Lily and Macy.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, she's kind of like blushing. She's like, why is she blushing thinking of Jesse?
Because she likes him.
She likes him. I need you to follow along. Okay? Put your Post-its away and follow along. Somebody tell me what page you're on so Jason can actually open his book and follow along.
39. Page 39.
39. There you go. But it was Miles. He came into the parlor, and when he saw that she was up, he smiled and whispered, "Good, you're awake. Come on, you can help me catch some fish for breakfast. This time, Winnie was careful not to make a noise when she climbed into the rowboat. She made her way to her seat in the stern, and Miles handed her 2 old cane poles. Watch out for the hooks, he warned, and a jar of bait. Pork fat cut into little pieces. Yes, Zeke?
On that test, it said one of the questions was who took Winnie fishing, and we haven't read that yet. I thought it was like.
It said who took Winnie to the pond.
Yeah. What's about the?
It said who took Winnie to the pond to talk about.
Yeah, that was tough. Oh yeah. It also said who took her fishing. And it also said how they described Miles, but Miles was the one that aimed a shotgun at his chest. I did not.
Nope, I just totally read every question on here. Didn't say fishy.
It's the very first one.
Who took Winnie fishing? Oh,
It says what now?
okay. I think she meant who took Winnie to the Miss Fish wrote the test. Maybe she just had the word fish on her brain because she's Miss Fish. All right. This time, Winnie was careful not to make a noise when she climbed into the rowboat. She made her way to the seat in the stern, and Miles handed her 2 old cane poles. Watch out for the hooks, he warned, and a jar of bait, pork fat cut into little pieces. A big brown night moth fluttered out from under the oar blades propped beside her on the seat and wobbled off toward nowhere through the fragrant air. And from the bank, something plopped into the water. A frog. Winnie caught just a glimpse of it as it scissored its way from the shore. The water was so clear that she could see tiny brown fish near the bottom, flicking this way and that. Miles pushed the rowboat off and sprang in, and soon they were gliding up toward the near end of the pond where the water came in from the stream. The locks grated as the oars dipped and swung, but Miles was skillful. He rowed without a single splash, and dripping from the blades as they lifted sent rows of overlapping circles spreading silently behind them. It was very peaceful. They'll take me home today, thought Winnie. She was somehow certain of this and began to feel quite cheerful. She had been kidnapped, but nothing bad had happened, and now it was almost over. Now, remembering the visits of the night before, she smiled and found that she loved them, this most peculiar family. They were her friends after all, and hers alone. Why does she say that they're hers alone? They're only her friends. Kendall, why does she say they're only her friends?
Because she doesn't have any friends, and they don't, so they became friends.
Okay. If you couldn't hear, Kendall said because Winnie doesn't have any other friends, and the Tucks don't have any other friends either. Very good. Okay. How'd you sleep? Miles asked her. All right, she said. That's good. I'm glad. Ever been fishing before? No, she told him. You'll like it. It's fun. And he smiled at her. The mist was lifting now as the sun poked up above the trees and the water sparkled. Miles guided the rowboat near a spot where lily pads lay like upturned palms on the surface. We'll let her drift some here, he said. There'll be trout down in those weeds and stems. Here, give me the poles and I'll bait the hooks for us. Winnie sat watching him as he worked. His face was like Jessie's, and yet not like. It was thinner, without Jessie's rounded cheeks, and paler, and his hair was almost straight, clipped neatly below the ears. His hands were different, too. The fingers thicker, the skin scrubbed-looking, but black at the knuckles and under the nails. Winnie remembered that he worked sometimes as a blacksmith, and indeed his shoulders, under his threadbare shirt, were broad and muscled. He looked solid like an oar, whereas Jessie, well, she decided Jessie was like water, thin and quick. Miles seemed to sense that she was watching him. He looked up from the bait jar, and his eyes, returning her gaze, were soft. Remember I told you I had 2 children, he asked. Well, one of them was a girl. I took her fishing, too. His face clouded then, and he shook his head. Her name was Anna. Lord, how sweet she was, that child. It's queer to think she'd be close to 80 now, if she's even still alive. And my son? He'd be 82. Winnie looked at his young, strong face, and after a moment she said, why didn't you take them to the spring and give them some of the special water? Well, of course, we didn't realize about the spring while we were still on the farm, said Miles. Afterwards, I thought about going to find them. I wanted to, heaven knows. But Winnie, how'd it have been if I had? My wife was nearly 40 by then, and children, well, what was the use? They'd have been near growed themselves. They'd have had to plow close to the same age as they was. No, it had all worked mixed up and peculiar. It just wouldn't have worked. Then Pa, he was dead set against it anyway. The fewer people knew about the spring, he says, the fewer there are to tell about it. Here's your pole. Just ease the hook down in the water. You'll know when you get a bite. Winnie clutched her pole, sitting sideways in the stern, and watched the baited hook sink slowly down. A dragonfly, a brilliant blue jewel, darted up and paused over the lily pads, then swung up and away. From the nearest bank, a bullfrog spoke. There certainly are a lot of frogs around here, Winnie observed. That's so, said Miles. They'll keep coming too, long as the turtles stay away. Snappers now, they'll eat a frog soon as look at him. Winnie thought about this peril to the frogs and sighed. It'd be nice, she said, if nothing ever had to die. Well now, I don't know, said Miles. If you think on it, you come to see there'd be so many creatures, including people. We'd all be squeezed in right up next to each other before long. So think about that. If nobody ever died, but there was always more people being born, more animals will being born, how crowded would Earth get really quickly, right?
It'd be like one of them concerts, trying to get in a concert.
Yeah, okay, so Gray compared it to like when you go to a concert and you're just like standing like right, you can't get in, you're squished in.
Thanos is gonna have to come here.
Thanos is gonna have to come here and half of you, done. All right, well that's one way to do it.
He's gonna have to come here every.
Thank you, Thanos. A little Avengers reference for those of you that are not aware. There's a bad guy that snaps his fingers and half. Yeah, it was the final Avengers movie, or the next to last one. It was the next to last one. And Thanos snaps his fingers, and half of the people disappear.
He needs to come here about every 100 years.
Every 100 years, Thanos comes and wipes out half the planet. I'm going to pass on that. Okay, here we go. Okay, so Miles says living forever might not be a good thing because
The world would get crowded.
it would get too crowded. Okay, Sean.
Yep.
Wave your hand if you got something to say.
My brother, he went fishing once. He didn't have no pole, but he did have a swimming pole. So I had to use one of those, and it never worked out, so I just threw it in the water.
You just threw it in the water.
Who's that?
Who's that?
DJ person.
Mr. Rothweiler was on our meeting for a minute. That's
Yeah.
weird. All right, well, anyway. Okay, carrying on. When he thought about this, apparently, if nothing ever had to die, we'd all be squeezed in right up next to each other before long. Winnie squinted at her fishing line and tried to picture a teeming world. Teeming means like overflowing. She said, yes, I guess you're right. Suddenly, the cane pole jerked in her hands and bent into an arch. Its tip dragged down nearly to the water's surface. Winnie held on tight to the handle, her eyes wide. Hey, cried Miles. Look there, you got a bite. Fresh trout for breakfast, Winnie. But just as suddenly the pole whipped straight again and the line went slack. Shucks, said Miles. It got away. I'm kind of glad, Winnie admitted, easing her rigid grip on the pole. You fish, Miles. I'm not so sure I want to. And so they drifted for a little longer. The sky was blue and hard now. The last of the mist dissolved, and the sun, stepping higher above the trees, was hot on Winnie's back. The first week of August was reasserting itself after a good night's sleep. It would be another searing day. Searing is like hot, like super hot.
I like how she described
Is that one of our vocab words?
Nope. Nope. But there are a lot of good vocab words in this chapter, but that's not one of them. A mosquito appeared and sat down on Winnie's knee. She slapped at it absently, thinking about what Miles had said. If all the mosquitoes lived forever, and if they kept on having babies, it would be terrible. The Tucks were right. It was best if no one knew about the spring, including the mosquitoes. She would keep the secret. She looked at Miles, and then she asked him, what will you do if you've got so much time? Someday, said Miles, I'll find a way to do something important. Winnie nodded. That was what she wanted. I'm going to pause there. Jason.
Mosquitoes lay 1 million within every 3 days.
Lay a million eggs? Jason says that mosquitoes lay 1 million eggs every 3 days. That's a lot. I definitely need them to all die as soon as possible.
Yes.
Please.
All right.
Hopefully Thanos gets them.
Okay, stop. All right, whoa, focus.
I hope there's a mosquito.
Focus. The way I see it, Miles went on, it's no good hiding yourself away, like Pa and lots of other people. And it's no good just thinking of your own pleasure either. People got to do something useful if they're going to take up space in the world. But what will you do? Winnie persisted. I don't know yet, said Miles. I ain't had no schooling or nothing, and that makes it harder. Then he set his jaw and added, I'll find a way, though. I'll locate something. Winnie nodded. She reached out and ran her fingers across the lily pad that lay on the water beside the boat. It was warm and very dry, like a blotter, but near its center was a single drop of water, round and perfect. She touched the drop and brought her fingertip back wet, but the drop of water, though it rolled a little, remained as round and perfect as before. And then Miles caught a fish. There it flopped in the bottom of the boat, its jaw working, its gills fanning rapidly. Winnie drew up her knees and stared at it. It was beautiful and horrible too, with gleaming rainbow-colored scales and an eye like a marble beginning to dim even as she watched it. So he catches a fish and she thinks it's beautiful and horrible. Why does she think it's beautiful and horrible, Jason?
Because it's beautiful because of the sight, but it's horrible because the hook is probably in its mouth and it's probably in pain.
Okay, beautiful. Yeah, beautiful because the fish itself actually was pretty, but horrible because she's literally watching it die with a hook stuck in it. Okay?
Yeah, but fish don't feel pain.
Fish do not feel pain, no.
Okay.
But it was still horrible to watch something die, I would assume. To just sit and watch something die. Okay. Oh, Fiona, go ahead. All the extra conversation has to stop. I dealt with it Monday. Today you'll owe recess. That. Okay, Fiona, go.
I kind of have like a self-to-self connection because one time
Okay.
I caught a fish and I thought it was really pretty, but I had to let it go. But the bad thing is that when I caught it, it went through its eye.
Wow.
Oh, Fee, yeah. Gross. I don't like that. Nasty. Yeah, that is definitely a beautiful but horrible connection for sure. Ew. Okay, graphic details. Zeke.
Yeah, I don't really understand why it's horrible. Because you just take your fish and throw it out of the water and you're looking at it. I feel like it's not dying like right away.
It's suffocating immediately because fish can't breathe air.
I know, but they can last like just like we can't breathe water.
Okay, so think about this. Zeke, if I just drop somebody that I know can't swim in water and they immediately went under, that would be horrible. They're not dying immediately. Like they'll be under there for like a couple of minutes, probably. But I'm just like, I know they're not going to be saved. So that's horrible to think about. And right? But I'm trying to make a connection so that Zeke will realize that watching something die. But Zeke's a hunter. He killed a deer last weekend, guys. So it is what it is.
You should watch a cactus head too.
All right. Anyway, I'm going to continue with the book. Or I'll wait till everybody's done talking. Super rude to our virtual friends who are all sitting quietly, patiently waiting. Okay. Beautiful and horrible. The hook was caught in its upper lip, and suddenly Winnie wanted to weep. Put it back, Miles, she said, her voice dry and harsh. Put it back right away. Miles started to protest, and then looking at her face, he picked up the trout and gently worked the barbed hook free. All right, Winnie, he said. He dropped the fish over the edge of the boat. It flipped its tail and disappeared under the lily pads. Will it be all right? Asked Winnie, feeling foolish and happy both at once. It'll be all right, Miles assured her. And then he said, people got to be meat eaters sometimes, though. It's the natural way. And that means killing things. I know, said Winnie weakly, but still. Yes, said Miles, I know. So Miles says people need to be meat eaters, like we need that protein. And Winnie says, yeah, I know, but still. What does she mean by that? She knows that she needs to eat meat to be healthy. But she's like, but
Meat gives you
Sophie, what do you think?
She doesn't want to see no or something.
Right. She knows she needs to eat meat, but she doesn't want to have to be the one that
Kills
it, right? Okay. She definitely doesn't want to have to just sit there and watch it die. Okay.
And meat gives you iron.
It does. And it gives you lots of different nutrients. Okay.
Yeah, and that tastes like
Chapter 18. And so there were flapjacks again for breakfast, but no one seemed to mind. Didn't get a bite, eh? Said May. No, said Miles. Nothing we wanted to keep. That was true anyway. And though Winnie blushed as he said it, she was grateful that he didn't explain. Never mind, said May. You're likely out of practice. Tomorrow, maybe. Sure, said Miles, tomorrow. But it was the thought of seeing Jessie again that kept Winnie's stomach fluttering. And at last he came down from the loft, yawning and rosy, rubbing his curls, just as May was piling the plates with flapjacks. Well, Slug-a-bed, she said to him fondly, you come near to missing breakfast. Miles and Winnie been up for hours out fishing and back already. Oh, said Jessie, his eyes on Miles. Where's the fish then? How come we got nothing but flapjacks? No luck, said May. They wasn't biting for some reason. Reason is, Miles don't know how to fish, said Jessie. He grinned at Winnie and she lowered her eyes, her heart thumping. It don't matter, said May. We got plenty without. Come and get your plates, everybody. They sat about in the parlor as they had the night before. The ceiling swam with bright reflections and sunlight streamed across the dusty, chip-strewn floor. May surveyed it all and sighed contentedly. Now, this is real nice, she said, her fork poised above her plate. Everyone sitting down together and having Winnie here. Why, it's just like a party. That's the truth, said Jessie and Miles both together, and Winnie felt a rush of happiness. Still, we got things to discuss, Tuck reminded them. There's the business of the horse getting stole, and we got to get Winnie home where she belongs. How are we going to do that without the horse? After breakfast, Tuck, said May firmly. Don't spoil a good meal with a lot of talk. We'll get to it soon enough. So they were silent, eating, and this time Winnie licked the syrup from her fingers without pausing to think about it first. Her fears at last night's supper seemed silly to her now. Perhaps they were crazy, but they weren't criminals. She loved them. They belonged to her. Tuck said, how'd you sleep, child? And she answered, just fine, and wished for a fleeting moment that she could stay with them forever in that sunny, untidy little house by the pond. Grow up with them, and perhaps if it was true about the spring, then perhaps when she was 17, she glanced at Jessie where he sat on the floor, his curly head bent over his plate. Then she looked at Miles, and then her eyes went to Tuck and lingered on his sad, creased face. It occurred to her that he was the dearest of them all, though she couldn't have explained why she felt that way. Why do you guys think she thinks Tuck is the dearest of them all? Kendall, what do you think?
He's very nice, and he's also worried about getting her home.
Okay. He seems very nice. He takes care of the family. Hey, Liam. However, so we're finishing up Tuck right now, and I'm going to have a recording posted for it later too. That who do you belong to, Liam? Whose class are you? Okay. All right. Okay. Where was I? How'd you sleep, child? He was the dearest of them all. Okay. However, there wasn't time to wonder, for at that moment, someone knocked at the door. Who's knocking at the Tuck's door? Macy.
The man in the yellow suit.
Man in the yellow suit. He's probably there now. It was such an alien sound, so sudden and surprising, that May dropped her fork, and everyone looked up startled. Who's that? Said Tuck. I can't imagine, whispered May. We ain't never had callers in all the years we've been here. The knock came again. I'll go, Ma, said Miles. No, stay where you are, she said. I'll go. She put her plate down carefully on the floor and stood up, straightening her skirts. Then she went to the kitchen and opened the door. Winnie recognized the voice at once. It was a rich and pleasant voice, the man in the yellow suit. And he was saying, Good morning, Mrs. Tuck. It is Mrs. Tuck, isn't it? May I come in?
He's rich.
How did he know they were the Tucks? Maggie, how did he know they were the Tucks? Or what would you like to add? He's been stalking them. Kendall, what do you think?
Because whenever Tucks or actually two of them went to the other area or the river area, he saw them and he was spying on them.
Okay, he's been spying on them, right? Jason.
Maybe he knows they drink the water.
Jason says he knows they drank the water. I think so. I think he's on to them. I think he knows that the spring is there because that's why he wants the woods from the Fosters.
He knows about the spring. He's been spying on. He might have been spying on them from a long time, seeing that they have not changed.
Okay.
He knows about the spring and what it does.
So why do you think he wants to talk to the Tucks? He knows about the spring and the woods, but he's already going to get that from the Fosters. He already worked out a deal where he can get the woods from the Fosters. So why do you think he might be interested to actually have a conversation with the Tucks at this point? Josie, what do you think?
Because he knows that they have Winnie.
He knows they have Winnie. Okay, so he needs to get Winnie from them. Zeke, what else?
So the Tucks probably won't just like give up Winnie, so he's trying to like, I don't know, like make a deal or try to find some way to like get Winnie from them.
Okay.
Like they're probably the Tucks are trying to take Winnie back, and they don't just want someone saying that they're gonna take her back and like just give a child to a stranger.
Right. So what Zeke said, if you couldn't hear, was that he's got to be nice to the Tucks and try and like find a way to work with them because he doesn't think they're going to want to give Winnie back up. He thinks they're going to want to keep Winnie and not just give her to a random stranger. Okay. Do you think he's going to want to talk to the Tucks about the spring and why they haven't changed? Because he's been, to Jason's point, he's probably been following them for a while now. He clearly knows about the spring, so he's probably seen that the Tucks never change. Do you think he's going to want to talk to them about the spring at all? Is this maybe a good reason for him to get there before the constable so they can talk about the spring and not the constable not know what's going on? Okay. Annie? Fiona, what do you think?
I think that the reason that he knows their name is since he has been spying on them, but since the Tucks he has the horse, the Tucks are gonna go outside or look out the window, and then they're gonna see their horse.
Okay, so they will eventually, hopefully, realize that their horse is back. Any predictions about what's going to happen now that the man in the yellow suit is there? Fiona, what do you think again?
I think that now he's going to talk to them about the spring and say that, well, now the Fosters just will give me the wood if I have to, but I have to take the girl back, Winnie back. And then don't the Tucks live in the wood with all of the others that the Fosters own? The Tucks live in the wood.
Okay.
So maybe if the man in the yellow suit gets the wood, maybe he might kick the Tucks out of the forest or the wood.
All right. Josie, what do you think?
Maybe he will exchange the horse for Winnie, and then he'll be walking home, and then like he'll try and be really nice, and then eventually they'll think that he's a nice person, and then whenever he goes home, they'll think that she's in good hands, and then he like just drops her off and dumps her, and then goes and says that he couldn't find her at the house.
Interesting. All right. Any other prediction? Jason, what do you think?
So like, he's probably gonna say, like, if you give me the girl so I can get the wood, then like they can get their and then he'll say, I'll give you your horse back, and we can make sure no one else drinks that water. Then they can take it, like get it in a container, and then like put it up forever.
Okay. So Jason said that he thinks they're going to try and trade the horse for Winnie, but also he's going to want to work with the Tucks to kind of like close up the spring forever.
Get it in a container, and then
Get it in a container to just save some of it, but then close off what's left. Okay.
Like the
Possibly.
people that have already drank it can drink the rest of it, so no one else.
All right, and then nobody else has access to
It
it.
kind of won't affect them if it doesn't really change the look.
Right. Sam, what do you think?
So they could. So I'm gonna go to the Tucks will want to give up. They are really not.
Hang on a second. Parker and Zeke, why are you guys just talking? Okay, Sam, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So then he might actually try to trade the wood for Winnie.
Okay.
He knows that they going to drink it.
Okay.
So
Sam says he's going to take the woods and try and trade the woods that he now has for Winnie. Because maybe they want to have control of the woods so that they can control the spring so that nobody knows about it. Okay.
He already has Winnie though to get this wood though.
But to get the woods, he has to have Winnie.
So he can't.
Okay. So lots of possibilities. Josie, more thoughts?
Okay, so I have a really interesting spin on it. So what if instead they kind of get the feeling that he wants Winnie and knows that she's there because he will come in probably. And then unexpectedly he like asks to take like one of their kids instead of Winnie. And since they care about their kids more, then they'll think that he wants their kids, and then they'll do different things for them, and like tell them more. They'll tell him more about the spring, because he can't know too much. Yes, he's obviously been stalking them, but he can't hear every single conversation.
Okay. All right. Possibly. All right. So I'm going to stop there for today. You guys have a worksheet on Seesaw. Liam, I'm not sure if Mr. R assigned you the worksheet, so I will make sure that he assigns you the chapter 17 and 18 worksheet. And I know you didn't get on till a little bit later. So I usually post a recording of this. So if you don't have your Tuck book at home or you didn't hear the beginning of it, I don't think you did. I'll post a recording of this later on Seesaw. So you'll be able to see the whole chapters from today if you'd like. My friends, it looks like most of you have already started working on it. The vocab words that go on the top of the worksheet are peril and creased. And I did type that in the chat for you guys at the very beginning. I will type them again real quick just in case they're not showing up anymore. Peril, creased. Those are your vocab words. All right, so for you guys on virtual, we're going to get back on here at 9 o'clock, so in like 15 minutes. And when we get back on, it is going to be time for our math test, okay? And you guys all have to have your cameras turned on so that I can see your beautiful faces, your handsome faces. So that, I mean, and you don't have to be like staring at the camera, obviously. All right, so if you guys haven't seen this before. Close that. Okay, you're looking up your vocab. Okay. So you have to have your camera on while you're testing, okay? It's going to be like that from now on when we take a test. Camera has to be on. Just a virtual test rule, okay? And I think that's it. So I'll see you guys in about 15 minutes or so for math. Okay, bye.
Bye.